Hello everyone, this is Christy with MyScrapbookEvolution.com, and in this video I have several mixed media silk paintings made with StencilGirl products to share with you. Now before we get started, I just need to make a quick disclaimer. I want to thank the ladies at StencilGirl products for sending me a couple of free stencils to use in these projects you're going to see today. Now both projects you're looking at are very different from each other. On the left you see an Art Nouveau inspired camel that I created during a silk painting class. I'm taking a class with a local artist. And on the right is the project you're going to see the process video for today. It's a more modern, abstract style, mixed media canvas. So I painted this camel during my silk painting class. You're not going to see a process video for it, and this video is really not about how to do silk painting. There's plenty of videos like that around YouTube and the internet. Rather, I'm sharing with you two specific pieces and what I did using these stencils. I brought the stencils with me to class, and I placed the Art Deco medallion behind the camel, which I had drawn freehand, and in the corners I placed the decorative medallion repeating corner stencil. I liked the way that this came out. You're also going to notice between the two pieces a difference in color. I'm using a couple of different variations of silk paint, and the ones I used in my class were a little more vibrant than the colors that I used at home. Let's take a closer look at the abstract painting before we see the process video. I used the boho striped circle stencil to create a more abstract looking painting. I call this painting Art Molecule. It's a combination of silk paint with embroidery and a little bit of beadwork. Again, the colors are not as vibrant, and that's because I used different colors than in class and different brands or types of silk paint. When you want to come into the world of silk painting, you'll just want to, just like any paint, you're going to want to experiment with the types of paints available to you to see what colors you like and how you like the way that they work with the silk. And here we are at my messy desk, and you're probably wondering, where did the square canvas go? Well, I wanted to give you a better look at how I applied the stencil to the silk. You can see I'm applying it here with a pencil, but it didn't really show up in the video. You really do want to use a pencil so there isn't any bleed through when you go through the rest of the process. I switched over to a black ink pen. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that because it can bleed through into the silk paint later on, and it can bleed across the silk itself. But by switching to the pen, it allows you to see how I applied the stencil. And of course, because this is mixed media, you can experiment. Maybe you like the bleed through and maybe you don't. Now, you probably also noticed that I'm wearing gloves. You do not have to wear gloves when you're silk painting. I had an allergic skin reaction, and I didn't think you really needed to see my hands with that going on, so I just decided to put on these cloth gloves to hide it. Once your design is finished on the silk, it's time to tighten that silk in the frame and apply the outliner. The outliner prevents the silk paint from bleeding into each other. Silk paint is a lot like watercolor, but sometimes it moves a little more freely than watercolor, and the outliner is one of the methods, just one, that gives us a little bit more control. Now, some of these stencils are very finely detailed, and what I discovered that, especially as someone who is new to silk painting, it was very difficult to do things in fine detail a lot of the time. So when I outlined the stencil with the outlining product, I chose to fill in some of those areas that I thought would be difficult for me to come back and fill in with the brush and the paint later on. Of course, this will have to dry once everything's applied, and then we'll be able to apply the silk paint. So I just wanted to quickly show you the difference between using a pencil and an ink pen when you're doing your stencil designs. So on the left is the completed piece that I'm showing you today, and on the right is the sample where I showed you how I applied the stencil, and you're seeing a little bit of the bleed through. And again, it's mixed media, so if this is something that you might want to desire, you can experiment with different colors of ink pens or other medium to apply the stencil and see how that affects the silk painting itself and how it affects the way the outliner looks on your finished canvas. And now we come to my favorite part of the process. Outlining the stencil takes some time, and then you have to be patient and wait for the outliner to dry. But when it comes time to paint with the silk, it's very satisfying. Much like watercolor, the ink kind of just spreads across the silk, and it's very gentle. It's a very relaxing thing to do. Once again, depending on the brand or the type of paint, you're going to have different consistencies or vibrancy of color. You can use specific silk paints, and there's also fabric paints that can be used as well. This particular frame is just a different type of embroidery frame than the one I showed you before. You just kind of choose the one you want to best represent the project. And if you're looking at the background design itself, you can see that the boho stencil is present, and then I took elements of that stencil, placing them outside to sort of fill in the design kind of at random. Just wherever the mood took me, I placed a stencil. And so here's another look at that final piece called Art Molecule. I felt like it needed a little bit something more, so I added some random embroidery stitches throughout. I wasn't going for perfection. It was almost just like scribble journaling. I just kind of made marks, but with needle and thread rather than with pen, wherever I wanted to. I went back in with the outliner and made a few gold dots in various places as well. And then I felt like it still needed a little more texture and dimension, and I added in a few simple glass seed beads. I always consider stencils to be an investment tool. I like getting stencils that I know I'll use again and again. I have been a StencilGirl products user for many years, pretty much since they opened their doors a few years ago. But I would once again like to thank them for sending me a couple of stencils to use on these particular projects. If you're interested in looking at what they have to offer, you can check them out at StencilGirlProducts.com. Be sure to hop around my YouTube channel and my blog and check out some of the other projects that I have made using StencilGirl stencils from my own stash.